right. Welcome back to the Draft Podcast. Proud member of the Gem City Gem City Sports Podcast Network. We're doing great already. Your front row seat to the NFL Draft. I'm your host, Paul Adamzak. And now that we are fully into the offseason, this is where things start to get a little silly. Less than a month from draft night, and things are really starting to pick up. First off, I wanted to thank all of you who tuned in last week. It was our most watched episode yet in 2 seasons, so I appreciate this thing starting to roll as we get closer to April 23rd in Pittsburgh, because at this juncture, the noise starts to get louder. The boards start to take shape, the opinions get stronger, and most importantly, they start to get tested, because this is the point of the cycle where you may start to question yourself and all of the information around you based on what you're hearing, what other people are saying, what narratives the agents are trying to put out there. Silly season. So here's what I've got today. We're starting with AI's most burning questions. I asked 4 different AI language models to surface their deepest curiosities regarding the 2026 NFL Draft, and I'm going to answer them here tonight. Then we'll get into another game called Stick or Flip. 5 names I've had to reevaluate since we started this process in January. The internet is forever. There's no hiding from bad takes. So if you're going to do this, you've got to be willing to adjust. And then finally, we'll close it out by ranking the running backs in what is, let's call it what it is, a less than stellar class. But there are a few guys in here that, in the right situation, are going to look a whole lot better on Sundays this fall than maybe they do right now. So we've got one great one on tap for today. Let's get into it. And let's start with AI's most burning questions. Once again, I had 4 different AI models comb through a massive pool of information. Scouting reports, draft boards, historical trends, team behavior, basically the entire information ecosystem around the NFL Draft, and distill it down into a set of questions for which I will attempt to provide answers. Not surface level takes, not recycled talking points. These are high-level pressure points that are going to shape how this draft unfolds. So instead of just me throwing opinions at you, let's start with the right questions and work our way through them. I want to start with ChatGPT, and I picked the order of these questions, so I know the order that they're coming, but I did not script answers. I gave myself some notes, but I didn't script these answers, so you're kind of getting my fresh take. This is from ChatGPT. Question number 1. At what point does a player like a top-tier safety stop being a great player at a low-value position and just become too good to pass on? And do we actually have one of those guys in this class, or are we forcing that conversation again? Great question, ChatGPT. I appreciate you bringing that up. ChatGPT is obviously alluding to Caleb Downs. Now, this is a pretty deep safety class. Caleb Downs is at the top of that class. There may be as many as 3 safeties that go night 1. Now, safety is not a high-value position. Obviously, the high-value positions starts with quarterback, then it goes to offensive tackle, and it used to be left tackle was greater than right tackle, but that has kind of gone away. Then you get to the defensive ends. Then you kind of got the perimeter guys, your defensive backs, your corners, and your wide receivers. And then you kind of get into the off-ball linebackers, your interior defensive linemen, your interior offensive linemen, your running backs, your centers, and then your fullbacks, and then your long snappers and kickers and punters, and so on and so forth. So at what point does a top-tier safety stop being a great player at a low-value position and just become too good to pass on? The notes I gave myself for this answer were this. There are 5 blue chippers in this draft. Blue chippers are like the top of the top elite prospects. Now, this is not position value ranked. This is who are they as football players. So the blue chip players in this draft include, and are in no particular order here, Jeremiah Love, Olaiva Vega-Ione, Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese, and Francis Maui-Noa. Maui-Noa is the tackle, Arvell Reese is the defensive end, Caleb Downs the safety, Ione the guard, and Love the running back. So 1, 2, 3. 3 of the 5 blue chippers are at low value positions. Arvell Reese is the defensive end, super high value. That's probably why he goes second. Francis Maui-Noa, offensive tackle, right side. So you might say a little bit less. I think his floor is, if not Hall of Fame guard, all pro guard, but he's going to get a shot at tackle, which is why I think I had him going third last week. At what point is a top tier safety just too good to pass on? Dwelling on that a little bit, I go back historically. Who are our top safeties in the last couple of years? Malachi Starks was the top safety last year. He went in the late 20s. I want to say 25. Nick Emanwari was a superstar workout guy. He went 33rd, 34th to Seattle, and what an impact he made. Going back a little bit further, 4 years ago now, I'm going to say it was Kyle Hamilton who went 14th overall. In the last 5 years that I looked, Hamilton was the highest pick safety at 14. So is Caleb Downs better than Kyle Hamilton? It's close. Kyle Hamilton certainly has the frame that you want. He's 6'4", he's 225 pounds. I don't know if he has the same level of instinct that Caleb Downs does. Now, I had Joey Allward on here last week. He did the mock draft with me. He took Downs at 6 to the Browns. And I think the assessment was on that one, is it too early? Is 6 too early for a safety? Well, if he's a position in need, he's the best available player. No, it's never too early. I have him ranked second. I want to look at my board again. No, I don't. I have him down in 8th. He was probably second on my January board. He was. So I dropped on him a little bit. And that's probably due to position value. And I'm getting closer and closer to where I think they're going to be drafted based on the slot as opposed to who they are as a football player. Caleb Downs is without a doubt, talent-wise, top 5 player. He's a blue chipper. At what point, I'm going to say, if I have to put a number on it, I think Caleb Downs should not go top 10. I think 11 is the earliest he should come off the board. All right, that's question number 1. I hope that answered how early is too early. I think Joyce 6, fine. I think 11 is the perfect spot for Caleb Downs. Next question, new AI chat model. This one was Grok. Or is it Grok? I think it's Grok. Out of these edge prospects, how many are legitimate, scheme-proof, pass-rushing demons who will wreck shop no matter the situation or supporting cast? And how many are just flashy traits guys who look the part on tape but will quietly bust if the stars don't perfectly align around them? First off, Grok is unhinged. The wording. I stopped using Grok for this show about the middle of last year because it's ridiculous. But you can tell by the wording that was Grok. So who are the defensive ends I trust? Edges. I shouldn't say defensive ends. Edges. Who are the edges that I trust to play well anywhere versus who are the flashy traits guys? So here's what I looked at. I looked at my top 50. There are 9 edge guys in the top 50 players. Arvell Reese at 5, David Bailey at 7, Ruben Bain at 8, Keldrick Falk at 20, Cassius Howell at 33, Akeem Mesidor at 35, TJ Parker at 39, Zion Young at 41, and R. Mason Thomas at 44. That's 9 guys in the top 50. Who are the guys who can succeed anywhere versus the guys who I think are just flashy traits guys? Let's go through them. Reese, and I'll say by extension Bailey, 5 and 7. Now, Arvell Reese tested through the moon. He plays a position of absolute need, and the tape is awesome. I hesitate because he's kind of small. I think he's going to be, I think his floor is Chop Robinson, who was overdrafted. I think he was taken 20th or 21st. He's a third down pass rusher. He wins with speed, a counter move, and the fact that his first step is faster than any tackle across from him. And I think David Bailey's the same way. David Bailey, his tape is even better than Reese, but he didn't test as well as Reese at the combine. So I think those guys, I'm going to push them in flashy traits guys, but if either, like, I expect them both to succeed because they're going to get drafted high and play a lot. Guys who are going to be drafted sort of the middle of the round and I think will be awesome wherever they go. I think Ruben Bain, I said this months ago, and I've moved him around a little on the board a little bit. He's not getting outside the top 10 because I don't care if his arms are an inch and a half shorter than what they want him to be. They want 32 plus, and he came in at like 30 and 7/8, so he's not quite even 31. If his fingertips are an inch and a half longer, so we're like not in the top 10, one of the greatest players in the draft. Like just watch Ruben Bain. Just put on a game. I don't care which one you want. You want to put on the national championship game. Put on one of the Miami games on the run to the national championship game. He's a freaking wrecking ball. I don't care where he goes. He's going to be a freaking wrecking ball because he sets the edge. Like his floor is he sets the edge, and his ceiling is he can rush the passer because he has a plan and he's violent. Keldrick Falk, flashy traits guy. You're betting on traits because the tape is a mixed bag. Sometimes he's awesome. Sometimes it looks like he's never played football. But he gets off the bus looking like he's coming from Central Casting, and they're looking for, just prototype defensive end. It's Keldrick Falk. Cassius Howell, traitsy guy, short arms, and he's not really an edge setter, another third down guy. Akeem Mesidor, I'm on the fence. I like Mesidor. He's kind of small, and he's kind of an older prospect. I have him at 35. I think he's outside the first round. We'll come back to Mesidor because I'm thinking. TJ Parker, I think he's going to be good. I have him at 39. It almost feels a little bit low. I'm going to come out with another top 50 before we're all said and done here, April the 23rd. Parker, I think, moves up. Didn't have a great season, but I think what he put on tape as a sophomore was better than what he put on tape as a junior. I don't know what happened at Clemson last year. Something went wrong. I think TJ Parker's the guy who's going to get it back and figure it out at the NFL. I think he's going to be good wherever he goes. Zion Young, I think the same thing. I have him at 41. I had him earlier in the first mock. I've dropped him a little bit. He was awesome at the Senior Bowl. Not a super flashy guy, but he's a guy that wherever he goes, he will play. R. Mason Thomas, same thing. I have him at 44. I don't think he's a super flashy, traitsy guy. I think he's just a solid football player. And finishing with Mesidor, I'm going to put him a flashy trait guy. I don't know if he succeeds or not. I would be surprised if he comes away as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have him as my 6th. He might be moving down. I might flop him and Parker now that I'm looking at it. All right, so that was Grok. Question number 3. Coming up on Claude. Do you guys use Claude? Every draft has that one position where demand outpaces supply and the whole board tilts. What's that position in 2026, and who are the prospects quietly riding mock hype into the late first round when their film is telling a much more modest mid-second round story? I have 2 positions for this because I could not decide. Wide receivers and cornerbacks, and they're for different reasons. Let's take a look at the wide receivers. I have 9 of them in the top 50. Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, Micaiah Lemon, Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper Jr., Denzel Boston, Chris Brazzell II, Antonio Williams, and Zachariah Branch. To the corners, I have 6 players in the top 50. Mansour Delane, Jermon McCoy, Avion Terrell, Brandon Sissy, Colton Hood, and Chris Johnson. Why do I think those are the 2 positions most likely to make a run in that mid to late first? Is because of how teams see them. 1, wide receivers are super deep this year. I mean, going beyond that top 9, there's probably 14 or 15 in the top 100. So there's lots of options. But with those lots of options, there are a lot of different body types. And it's kind of who fits your scheme, who do you want to work in your system, who fits with what you're trying to do. And because wide receiver is a high value position, I can see, I know Tate, Tyson, Lemon all probably go top 15. It's when we get to Concepcion, Cooper, Boston, Brazel, Williams, Branch, et al. Those are the order that I have them in. We'll see what teams want those guys in, because Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston are 5 spots apart on my board. They are worlds apart in like how they play the game, where they're going to line up, what they're going to be asked to do. I think Concepcion and Cooper come off the board close together, because there's going to be one team that takes one and then another team who panics thinking, oh, that was our guy, and the other one's their backup, and they trade up and take that guy. Sort of the same thing with Boston and Tyson. Boston and Lemon and Brazel. Big guys, Z receivers. Number 2 guys, 50-50 ball guys. They're taking away the safety. They're obviously got the corner, but you have to shade the safety over the top, or those guys are going to make you pay. Not everybody, they probably not going to play in the slot, but somebody who needs an outside presence, probably not the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to take one of those smaller slot guys. So you look at Antonio Williams and Zachariah Branch, sort of in that mid-second round, but like, do they get pushed late first? Because maybe all, let's see, of the 9, I have 6 in the top 30. Maybe all 6 go top 30. Maybe all 6 go top 25. And now you're at a team sitting at 25, 26, 27 going, I need a receiver. And now you're starting to pull from that second pool of receivers. And they make their way late in the first. Same thing, and that's sort of the idea with the corner is there's only 6, and 5 of the 6 are ranked in the top 24. So if all 6 go, does Chris Johnson move up? Does Rivers move up? Does Igbenuson move up? Where do teams value those guys? Is there an outlier that we're not thinking about that moves up into that late first round, because CB is another high value position? So I think wide receiver and corner, once we get after pick 15, either one or both, I could see, wide receiver, corner, 3 in a row, a run late in that first round. Good question, Claude. Finally, I'm going with a new one. Have you guys used Perplexity? This one was neat. Which prospects are we currently dissecting to exhaustion, scrutinizing every flaw and overanalyzing every rep, when in reality, they're just destined to become solid NFL players we'll later claim were can't miss all along? I alluded to one earlier, Ruben Bain. I think in episode 1 this year, 100 Days of Scouting, was a great episode. I spent a lot of time writing that one. Go back and listen to it. Ruben Bain, I said, was going to test with short arms. He was a top 3 player coming off the season. Miami was awesome. That defense was awesome. And there's a lot of guys who were going to get drafted off of that defense. Ruben Bain was the spoon that stirred the pot, or the straw that stirred the drink, whatever your favorite onomatopoeia is. Or no, that's not it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Whatever your favorite analogy is, Ruben Bain is that dude. The short arms, the testing, he's not going to do this. He's a little bit small. How much does he actually weigh? We don't know. When it's all said and done, Ruben Bain's going to be awesome. Jacob Rodriguez is another one. Let's not overthink it. If he makes his way into the first round, wouldn't be surprised. He's my top linebacker for sure. Kyle Lewis is another one at the linebacker spot. He's a little small, but the instincts are unbelievable. He came in over 220 pounds. He tested really well. He's a guy that is outside of most people's top 50 right now. I have him in the late 40s, I believe. And I think he's just going to be a terrific NFL player. Bud Grant, probably going to take a year to get used to the speed of things in the NFL. But here's a guy that just, once he understands where to be and when to be there, he's a vacuum. He's a turnover magnet. I think Bud Grant's going to be an awesome player in year 2, 3, 4. Antonio Williams, I think, is going to be great. Another one of these Clemson guys that was like, could have been a top 15 pick if we'd done this like last August. Somehow fallen off, but he's so smooth. He catches so clean. It's going to be a shorter learning curve for Antonio Williams as compared to some of these other wide receivers. I think he's going to be a great pro. Another linebacker, Anthony Hill Jr., didn't test off the charts, really good football player. I think he's going to be great from Texas. And another Clemson guy, TJ Parker, who I mentioned just a few minutes ago. I think he's going to be a great pro. Just a lot of things that athletically guys his size aren't supposed to be able to do. Had a bad season. The stats aren't there. The tape is kind of clunky, but once he puts it all together, TJ Parker's going to be a really good NFL player. So that's it for AI's burning questions, which leads us to stick or flip. So the next segment is where it gets real. This is stick or flip. I've got 5 names that I've taken strong positions on since January, and now the question is, do those takes still hold up? This is the part of the process where you either double down or you admit something's changed. New information, better context, more tape, whatever it is. If you're not willing to adjust, you're not evaluating, you're just defending old positions. So we're putting it on the table here right now. 5 players, 5 decisions. Am I sticking or am I flipping? And we got to start number 1 with probably my most spicy take from episode 2. I had Ty Simpson as QB3 in January. Am I sticking or am I flipping? I'm sticking. I don't care what's come out recently, all those CAA agents or all the CAA represented players, the Dan Orlovskis of the world saying, oh, GMs are telling me he's QB1. No, he's not. Stop. He's had 6 good college games, 6 not so good college games, and got replaced at the end of the year. Was it for injury? Sure, but it was certainly also due to ineffectiveness. I'm not going to rehash the whole take I had back in episode 2. You can go back and listen to it, but I am sticking by it. I think Garrett Nussmeier and Ty Simpson are both high-end backup quarterbacks. Those are their floors. But I'm taking Nuss over Simpson just because I've seen more of them. I'm more comfortable with them. So with Ty Simpson, QB3, I am sticking to it. He's still outside my top 50, by the way. Player number 2, stick or flip. I mentioned him earlier in the show. Zion Young, edge out of Missouri. Back in January, I had him 29th. Now, he's fallen to 41st. Am I sticking or am I flipping? Well, I'm going to call it a little bit of a flip. It was a big drop, 12 spots. Actually, the biggest drop I've seen, the biggest drop from January till now. And that's because reality is setting in. The edge class is crowded, and it's easy to slide. The question was, did I overvalue his Senior Bowl performance a little bit? Probably. Do I still like him as a day 1 starter to the team that drafts him? Probably on day 2? Absolutely. I don't think he has the high-end physical traits that we saw from some of those high-end guys that I mentioned a few moments ago. But I think he's a solid player. Again, he's 41st in my top overall. He's a top 50 player. I think he's a tremendous player. Do I still think he's a first-round talent like I thought he was back in January? No, I don't. So I'm going to call this one a flip. Still think Zion Young is great. Number 3, stick or flip. This one hurts a little bit because I've been in some online keyboard warrior battles over this particular player in the last couple of weeks because he keeps getting mocked to my team way too early. But I wanted to talk about Dylan Thieneman, the safety out of Oregon. Back in January, I had him as my 34th overall player. Now, I have him up to 19. That, folks, is a clear flip. That's a massive jump. He moved more than anybody in the last 2 months on my board. So that is the board correcting itself, we'll say. See the instincts, you see the production, and that's what's forcing me to buy in. The question is, do I think he's a top 20 football player? Yes. Instinctually, athletically, awesome. Do I believe he gets picked in the top 20? No. I just told you a little bit ago how safeties go. Caleb Downs is can I say generational player? I'll say generational safety. I have a hard time picking him in the top 10. Do I believe Dylan Thieneman, who is not a generational talent at safety, but a really, really good football player, also breaks the trend and gets picked inside the top 20? No, I don't. I don't think he's even better than Malachi Starks. So I'm a flip. I'm higher than 34. I think Thieneman gets taken in the first round, but I'm looking at 21, 22, 23 as probably his ceiling. So I'm a flip, but I'm a conservative flip, let's say. Number 4, stick or flip. Now, for those of you playing the home game, I've had 1 stick and 2 flips. So I'm being real honest with you guys tonight. I'm going against myself here. Player number 4, KC Concepcion, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. In January, I had him at 28 on my board. Now, he's at 25. I'm a stick. Why does this feel like a bigger move than it probably is? Well, I think his role clarity versus upside debate has a lot to do with it. Again, he's not an X receiver. He's not a Z receiver. He's a slot guy, all right? He's going to line up all over the formation. You're going to probably move him around. My question is, why is he being undervalued? This is a stick because this is a trust my eyes kind of player. I watched more Concepcion in season than I have on tape, to be completely honest, because I saw what I needed to see last season, week in and week out. He was a number 1 option, has great hands. I've gone over his scouting report. 2 weeks ago, we did the wide receiver breakdown. I told you exactly why I love Kevin Concepcion. I trust him. High leverage moments, he's the guy who they're going to. Big time, big play scenarios, we need to play now. Plays are being drawn up to get the ball in his hands. He's a stick player. 25 feels low. So 2 sticks, 2 flips. Here's the tiebreaker. Player number 5, and it's an interesting one. Zachariah Branch, the wide receiver out of Georgia. In January, he was my 45th best player. He's now my 48th best player, and I think that's a stick. And honestly, I'm doubling down. Zachariah Branch was a freshman All-American, lest we've forgotten. He is the nephew of Hall of Fame wide receiver Cliff Branch, who played with a fella named Fred Biletnikoff. My area listeners might recognize that name. Won a couple of Super Bowls together. Freddie Biletnikoff, the namesake for the top wide receiver in the country, played with this guy's uncle. And also, Branch was a guy who finished in the top 10 in the entire FBS with 81 receptions last season. And somehow, we've talked ourselves into questions about the guy. Quite frankly, I think this is what happens when a player doesn't fit neatly into that prototype. He's not a true X. He's not a true Z. But he separates, he produces, he changes games with the ball in his hands wherever he lines up. And instead of leaning into that, we start nitpicking what he's not. Well, I'm not doing that. I'm not moving him down because he's different. I kept him in the top 50 because this is a guy who's going to be very good at the next level. So let's rehash stick or flip. Ty Simpson, QB3, stick. Zion Young, edge from Missouri, flip. He fell a little bit. Dylan Thieneman, safety from Oregon, flip. He's a riser. KC Concepcion, wide receiver from Texas A&M, stick. He's not getting out of the first round. And Zachariah Branch, wide receiver from Georgia, he's a stick. I'm not letting him get outside of my top 50. I think he goes in the second round despite it being a super rich wide receiver draft. And again, I'm doubling down on it because I know that this dude's a good football player, and I know that offensive coaches salivate when they see a guy like him. He's Curtis Samuel plus. So that'll do it for the second segment. Now we're getting to the meat of the show. Let's close it out with the running backs. And this is a really interesting group this year. On the surface, not a headline class like last year. There's really only one slam dunk, top 10, build your offense around this guy type of player. But that's what makes it fun. Because somewhere in this group, there are backs that are going to produce if they land in the right situation. The difference between RB2 and a 1,200-yard season might just be the scheme, usage, and opportunity. So this isn't about star power. This is about identifying guys who are going to hit when everything lines up. So let's rank them. And no surprise at number 1, folks, it's Jeremiah Love. He's one of the blue chippers from Notre Dame. This is your list anchor, and the testing now backs it up. Love went for 1,372 yards and 18 touchdowns on 6.9 yards per carry. Plus, he added 27 catches for 280 yards and 3 scores through the air. That's over 1,600 yards of total offense in 2025. In fact, he posted 2,497 rushing yards and 35 touchdowns over his final 2 seasons at Notre Dame. And then he got to Indy and ran a 4.36 in the 40. So now you're talking about a dude who's a legit 6 foot, 214 pounds with home run speed and 3-down versatility. Listen, man, 6.9 a carry, 18 touchdowns, and then a 4.36. There's no projection there. That's just a blue chip football player and an easy number 1 running back in this class. I think he would have been number 1 last year, too. I have him over Genty, for sure, and Hampton, for sure. Number 2, and right away, this is where we're going to break from consensus. Let me break down my running back ideology here. Who am I picking in Madden? Right? That's what we want. I want playmakers, guys who can do it all. I want the ceiling guys. Put an offensive line in front of these guys and let them go, because college to the NFL, position by position, running back is the easiest transfer to make. That's because, like, if you have vision, you're golden. And I think a lot of scouting for this position is done well before we get to this point in the process. Every single player who plays football, and I can tell you this as a coach, offensive lineman, every single offensive lineman I've ever been around ever has asked me to carry the football at least once. Coach, can I get a carry? Coach, can I get 1 carry at the end of the 4th quarter? Coach, can you give me the ball 1 time? Every single person who's ever laced up cleats, shoulder pads, and put a helmet on has asked to carry the football. And there's been at least 1 coach who said, yeah, fine, shut up, here, get the ball. And they have either done okay to warrant another carry. Most of them fall flat on their face. They're done. No, you can't carry the ball, and this is why. So a lot of this process is weeded out in middle school, in junior varsity, in Pop Warner, in varsity, in high school, well before we even get to the college ranks. Once we get to college, we know who the dudes are who have the easiest position. You're going to line up back here, and we're going to hand it to you, and you go. So the vision is sort of built in. The feet are something we look at. But obviously at this point, you're looking at the best out of the best. So that's I say that to say this. We know who the athletes are. When you get to the combine, you find out who they are number-wise. And this is why, after Jeremiah Love, my board gets a little fun. Well, this is why I'm doing running backs tonight. I break from consensus, and I'm usually right. This is why I do this show. Okay? Number 2 is Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas. This is why he's so fun, because now what we saw on tape, those traits are confirmed. Washington ran a 4.33 40, which is absurd when you realize he's 6'1", 223 pounds. Also, by the way, he had a 39-inch vertical and a 10-foot 8-inch broad jump. Absurd. Production-wise, you're looking at a player who ran for over 1,000 yards, 1,070, and also had solid touchdown numbers, 8 in 2025, and flashes real downhill dominance. He is the true upside swing in this class. The caution flag here is ball security. 8 fumbles in the last 2 seasons. And that's tough, because Raheem Mostert, basically, he lost his NFL chance when he started fumbling the ball. He went like 440 carries without a fumble, then had 4 over the span of 26, and we haven't seen him run since. So that tension is what makes Washington a great talking point. He might actually be the class's best blend of size and speed outside of Love, but there's a lot to clean up. That's why I have him at number 2. Number 3, moving right along, another back I really like, Emmett Johnson from Nebraska. Might have the most complete stat profile in the class. Rushed 251 times for 1,451 yards and 12 touchdowns in 2025, while adding 46 catches for 370 yards and 3 receiving scores. That's volume and versatility. 251 totes, 46 catches. They're going after this dude every 2 out of 3 plays. Testing wise, he looks like what he is. Fluid athlete, enough speed to stay on the field for all 3 downs, displays vision, short area quickness, and lateral agility. Pass protection is the swing skill for whether he becomes a true 3-down player or not, but this is your modern back. The floor is a passing down contributor. The ceiling is a full-time weapon out of the backfield. Look for Emmett Johnson next year. He is my RJ Harvey, who I had a little bit low, but I was higher than most on RJ Harvey last year, and he tore it up for Denver. Put him with the right coach, and Johnson could be special. Next one on my list I have 10. I was going to do 5, but it just didn't seem deep enough because the class is so varied. I want to give you 10. Number 4 I have is Jonah Coleman, running back out of Washington. Coleman is the does everything right back. You see solid production. You see strong efficiency. A guy who's involved in the pass game. He was a finalist for the Paul Hornung Award, which is the nation's most versatile player. He was also a finalist for the William V. Campbell Trophy, which is the academic Heisman. PFF says he forced 148 avoided tackles on carries, which is the most among the backs they ranked. And he tied the best mark in the class at 4.3 yards per carry, 4.3 yards after contact per carry. After somebody got a finger on him, he rushed for another 4.3 yards. That's unbelievable. 758 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns last season. Also caught the ball 31 times for 354 yards. The question is whether you see him having enough top-end juice for him to be more than just a very good rotational hammer. He didn't test at the combine or the pro day, although he did do 22 reps on the bench. Nothing about his profile raises red flags. I'd say he's safe, maybe not special. Is that fair? Rounding out the top 5, I have Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame. Jeremiah loves the Robin to Jeremiah loves Batman. And I like him because he is the efficiency monster in this class. You're looking at a guy who was north of 6 yards per carry, had double-digit touchdowns, added legit value in the return game. He actually tied for the FBS lead with 2 kickoff return touchdowns and averaged 37.5 yards per return. Additionally, according to PFF, he tied for the best yards after contact per carry among its top 20 backs at 4.3. That tied Jonah Coleman, which is why they were 4-5. Also tested well enough to validate the speed that we saw on tape. 4.49 in the 40, had a 35-inch vertical, 10.4 in the broad. Not just fast, but functional athleticism that shows up in game. I would say there's plenty of tread left on the tires after splitting time with Jeremiah Love the last 2 years. The ruptured Achilles in 22 seems to have made his way all the way back. Chips on the table, most places have him as the number 2 back. I tend not to trust the second fiddle in a 2-back offense. And I'm consistent on this. I had Ronnie Brown over Cadillac Williams. I had Reggie Bush over Lendale White. I had Darren McFadden way over Felix Jones, right? Historically, two-back teams, the one back is sort of carries the weight for the other, and the other guy kind of looks better as a result. I don't know if that's the case with Jadarian Price because Jeremiah Love is so far and above every other back in this class that Jadarian Price, who was good in his own right, in the age of NILs, why he didn't transfer, I question it. I question confidence in himself. And really that's why I have him at 5. I think a lot of places have him ranked higher than me. Coming off an Achilles, the red flag was the Achilles, obviously, but you look at those numbers, the Achilles was 3, almost 4 years ago now. He seems to have made his way back. It's always in the back of your mind, guys with an injury history, especially at the running back position, where the shelf life in the NFL is the average career is 3 years anyway. Serious injury history really drags that down when you extrapolate that out. I still have him as a top 5 running back. We may do I almost did a boom or bust segment. We might still do that later. But he would be on my boom or bust list. I can see him being awesome. I can see him being nothing. That rounds out the top 5. At number 6, And this is where I get kind of split. The career numbers are awesome. The receiving production is there. Physically, he looks like a top-tier back. I'm speaking, of course, of Nicholas Singleton from Penn State, where he finished his career with a Penn State record, 5,586 all-purpose yards and 55 total touchdowns. He had 901 receiving yards over the last 3 seasons. He got hurt at practice for the Senior Bowl, so we didn't get to see him versus that comp. Plus, he wasn't able to work at the Combine or his pro day, although he did do 25 reps on the bench, which is awesome for the running back position. If you want a back with real God-given NFL gifts, he belongs in the conversation. If you want the cleanest tape, you can talk yourself out of him. Coming into this last season, Nicholas Singleton was my number 2 back behind Jeremiah Love. He has fallen to 6 because he had his worst season as a Nittany Lion, and I don't know why. I said all season long, and I talked to a lot of Penn State fans who are friends of mine. I live in Pennsylvania. And they asked, what is wrong with Singleton? And I said, I don't know. There's clearly something wrong. I think he was playing hurt. I don't know what happened because he was outplayed by his running mate this year, who's not as physically gifted as Singleton. He's clearly the better receiver, but the tape was not good this year, and I'm hoping that I'm banking that number 6 ranking on a bounce back in the NFL. But this last year was tough. You got to go 2 years ago and watch Singleton, maybe even 3 years ago, to see the best of Nick Singleton. Which leads me to number 7, his running mate at Penn State, Kaytron Allen. 2 years ago, I said Allen wouldn't even make it to the NFL. This is one of the best, like the best riser stories at the running back position in college. 1,303 rushing yards, 15 touchdowns in 2025. He was awesome. 52.5% of his runs earned a positive grade, according to PFF, second only to Jeremiah Love. Testing-wise, he's exactly what you would say. Not a burner, but he's not a liability in any certain area either. He's the kind of player who might never be the guy, but who probably ends up being useful for a long time. He's not winning any track meets, but he's probably winning you 4 yards on 2nd and 3. One thing that I'm not a comp guy, but I saw someone say Tyler Algier as the Kaytron Allen comp, and I love that. Tyler Algier, is he still with the Falcons? Nothing flashy, between the tackles runner, but he's your classic 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I think Kaytron Allen has really improved his vision, his ability to set up running lanes, patience in the hole, and then finishing downhill with power. And then I love the classic, he's finishing forward. He's falling forward. The Cam Scattaboo, I'm not running away from contact. It's if you're going to tackle me, I'm going to hit you back, right? And that's what I love about Kaytron Allen, and that's why I have him inside the top 10. Could have easily gypped him out of the top 10 because of the lack of the elite physical traits, but I think his running style translates to the NFL, and I think he'll make a team happy for a couple of years. 8, 9, and 10. Really, really fun because they could have gone in any order, and there's probably 2 or 3 guys who I left out. So here's why I have 8, 9, and 10. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in like a DM. Let me know what you think. 8, 9, 10. Who did I miss? At 8, I have Damon Claiborne out of Wake Forest. And I'll tell you why. I get 3 reasons here. This is what I have listed. Speed, and more speed. Claiborne is one of the fastest backs in the class. Track background, true, legitimate, long speed that shows up on tape. Numbers-wise, 907 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns in 2025. A year ago, he went 1,049 yards and 11 scores in 2024. PFF says he was one of the fastest backs in the class by tracking data, which is important. Push-pull between him is explosive playability and whether he could be more than just a change of pace or a gadget usage piece. But if he lands with the right play caller, suddenly everybody knows about him by October. I look at Damon Claiborne as your angle changer. One cut and the defense is in trouble. Do you guys remember Rondale Moore? Rest in peace. Damon Claiborne reminds me of Rondale Moore. Maybe not as good of a receiver, but small, an absolute water bug, electricity out of the backfield. Number 9, because we're running short on time, Le'Veon Moss out of Texas A&M. This is your health versus talent debate. Good patience, great vision, short area quickness, lowers his pads, good foot speed, can generate explosive gains. Average 5.2 yards per carry with 6 touchdowns in just 7 games in 2025. Ran for 765 yards and 10 touchdowns in 2024. Everybody's basically saying the same thing about this guy. If he's healthy, he belongs in the middle of the RB2 discussion. But if not, this gets hard. He's one of the best examples of he's a gem in the right situation because the talent is easy to spot, but the durability will push him down boards. And that's why I have him all the way down at 9. If he gives you 17 games, he outplays his draft slot for sure. That's the bet. And finally, that was number 9. That was Le'Veon Moss. Did I say that? Le'Veon Moss out of Texas A&M. Finally, at number 10, this might be a Madden pick, boys. Seth McGowan out of Kentucky. This is your tone setter back. Downhill, physical, productive in the red zone. 725 yards, 12 touchdowns in 2025. Plus, he caught the ball 19 times. He's not just a thumper. He's not a flashy choice, but he tested really well. 4.49 at 223 pounds. Broad jump of 10.11. Vertical jump of 42.5. Yeah, I'll bet on a power runner with that type of explosiveness to be functional and reliable at the next level. This is a role player, but that's not a bad thing. So Seth McGowan from Kentucky rounds out my top 10 running backs in this class. Not a class where I'm pounding the table for 6 future stars. It's a class with one legitimate difference maker, 4 or 5 backs I can see becoming useful NFL pieces in the right environment, and then a whole bunch of arguments about role, fit, and how much juice you think is actually in that bottle. So that's going to do it actually for this week. Next week's episode, a little bit of a teaser, we're doing roster problem draft solution. I picked 3 teams, Bills, Browns, Steelers, and I'm going to give you the actual problem on their roster right now and then identify a feasible draft solution. That is, identify the correct type of prospect, not just give you names. Then I'm going to play higher and lower. I've got 3 guys who I'm way higher on than consensus and 3 that I think are being completely overhyped. And then finally, we're going to rank and break down this loaded edge class. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Draft Podcast. If you've got thoughts on anything we talked about today, the questions, the flips, the running back rankings, I want to hear about it. Hit us up on the Gem City Sports Facebook page, the YouTube channel, or wherever you're listening. You can follow me on X at RufusP88. We'll be back next week with more as this board continues to evolve, because this is the part of the cycle where things start to move fast. I'm Paul Adamczak, and this has been the Draft Podcast presented by the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. I'll talk to you soon.